Greetings, everybody. It is I, the Nomad. And obviously, I'm not going to be able to do the show the way I want to live, so I'm going to do it this way. Okay? And I'm going to continue with what I was saying before. There are certain things about the left that you've got to come to grips with and understand. And that is, no matter whether or not you like it or not, the power of the mainstream media, while diminished, is still very significant. When you cannot look at the same video and come to simple conclusions, okay? When you look at a video and you see a guy hit by the car, it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to agree how hard the person was hit. But you have to sit up there and come to the same belief that the guy was hit or not. If you can't do that, then you have no basis of reality to talk from. And this is significant. When the media shows you a picture of the guy being hit and then says, no, he wasn't hit, he wasn't hit. Who do you believe? And you're looking at the video, you see the car hit the guy. Who are you going to believe? And if you're believing the people who are telling you the worst things about somebody because you're suffering from TDS, you just don't like Trump, what are you going to do with it? How can you have a conversation with this? You can't have a conversation with somebody who says, well, I don't like Trump and I've got TDS, even though I saw the person actually get hit, and say, no, he wasn't hit. You don't have to like the fact that the ICE officer shot the lady. You can even try and make the claim that there was no excuse for that, which is just utterly silly. Okay? It's utterly silly for reasons you have to actually try and think about. You have to explore that, why it's utterly silly to make that comment. But before you even do that, before you can do that, you have to be honest. Because if you can't be honest with what you saw, you can't even be honest with yourself. And if you can't be honest with yourself, how can you be honest with somebody else? How can you have a discussion with somebody who can't be honest with themselves? This isn't a matter of I agree to disagree. You can disagree with conclusions which are theoretical, which if somebody saying that this leads to this leads to this, you can say is theoretical. I'm telling people that this isn't happening today. With the network, so I'll upload a storyline. I won't bother with a stream. But you can't if you can't be honest with yourself. All right. And I had this from somebody I thought was somewhat objective. But if you can't be objective, it doesn't matter what else you argue about. It really doesn't. It doesn't make any difference. All right, let's get to this. Sovereignty and integrity of Greenland, Denmark's territory, non-negotiable, says Ursula von der Leyen. Oh, okay. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said Tuesday that the European Union stands in full solidarity with Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark, stressing that their sovereignty and territorial integrity are non-negotiable. In a special address to the World Economic Forum in Davos, von der Leyen said that the EU is preparing an Arctic security support package built on 5 pillars, including stepped-up investment in Greenland's economy, and infrastructure and increase defense spending on European icebreaker capability. Oh, that'll do it. That'll fix the problems. She said that Europe must adjust to new security architectures and reality and is preparing its own security strategy, including an upgraded Arctic strategy to be published later this year. Yeah, we can write a document. That'll fix it. Boy, howdy, that'll stop the orange Führer. That'll stop the Cheeto Führer. A strongly worded comment from Ursula. Yeah, boy, howdy. Meanwhile, Trump trolls European leaders with wild AI image of him planting the U.S. flag on Greenland. Leaks fawning text from world leaders. President Trump trolled European leaders over Greenland by sharing an AI generated picture of himself planting the U.S. flag on the autonomous Danish territory as he leaked fawning text messages from world statesmen ahead of the high stakes Davos summit this week. The image shared by the president early Tuesday on Truth Social shows Trump making his territory or marking his territory, followed by Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. It also features a sign declaring Greenland a U.S. territory since 2026. Oh. Now, the thing is Trump serious about acquiring Greenland? Yes, he is serious. Has he any intention of doing it militarily? No. But at the same time, okay, European intransigence and backstabbing isn't going to change the attitude of America. And the more they do this, the more Americans see things from an isolationist perspective. Now, I wasn't an isolationist. I'm real close to it now. There's a lack of understanding from the Europeans that the U.S. somehow needs them far more than they need us. When the exact opposite is true. The reason their economies are failing, the reason they're having problems within their economic state is they've been stealing U.S. Treasury. They've been using the deals that were meant to bring up their economies to protect them after the devastation of World War II, and they want that to continue while they sit up there and don't have to fund themselves and defend themselves. They want everything done for them. Well, Trump is putting it plain and simple. If you want to defend yourself, do it. Nothing's stopping you. But see, the problem is then they have to pay for it. And what they've been doing is they've been paying for all their little social welfare programs and have their people addicted to all their little social welfare programs of what the world is like, right? On the backs of the United States security, being the brunt of their security. And they've gotten further and further and further behind. Modern weaponry isn't cheap. No, modern weaponry can be effective if you have the logistics chain to back it up. But modern weaponry without the logistics chain, the military logistics chain to support it, is being shown to have massive weaknesses. Ask the Ukrainians, because that's their problem. Part of their problem. The other problem is they're fighting the same way the Soviets are, but that's a separate issue. They're fighting the Soviets' game. They're fighting the game of the Soviet Union. So are the Russians. And we're going to see where it ends up, because unless the United States keeps pumping in money and pumping in weaponry, Ukraine falls. Because Europe has no intention of actually living up to any of the obligations that they promised they would. They have no intention of stepping in. They have no intention of actually doing anything that costs them blood and treasure. They're all for voting U.S. blood and treasure anywhere and everywhere in the world, but not themselves. Hell no. Which is why they're still taking Russian gas and Russian oil. So Ursula and her, we're going to protect Greenland. If we had wanted Greenland, all right, militarily, we have a single airborne division that would have finished the job. And there's nothing the world could have done about it, aside from go and issue derogatory statements at the EU, all right, or derogatory statements at the US. And France isn't any better. I love this commentary. Trump throws unhinged tariff tantrum. This is from the Irish Star. All right. Oh, it's an unhinged. Okay. Over the prospect of France refusing to join his new board of peace. He doesn't give a shit about them joining it. Trump's threat is a response to President Macron's apparent hesitation to participate in the initiative. President Donald Trump has threatened to slap a hefty 200% tariff on French wine and champagne if France refuses his invitation to join the newly formed Board of Peace. The board, ostensibly created to supervise the reconstruction of war-ravaged Gaza, seems to have a much wider remit of maintaining global order, with Trump at the head, according to its founding charter. Trump's tariff threat is a response. No, it's not. His tariff threat is a response to the commentary about the French for more than just the peace board. It's across the board. Right now, whether people want to believe it or not, the EU's military is French, with a couple of Germans, poking around in there. But for the most part, the only reasonable military force on that continent, aside from the United States and Russia and Poland, is French. And the Poles, they've already discounted. Why? Mainly because of training and the fact that they're still too mired in the old Soviet doctrine militarily. It takes a long time to get rid of the type of thinking, military logic and thinking of the old Soviet Union. You got to rewrite your doctrine, but you've got to rewrite it in a different manner. And one of the things that the Russians understood and the Soviets understood was, we wrote our doctrine based on our capabilities. The U.S. doctrine is significantly different, but the reason it's different is because there is a significant difference in our capabilities. And when I say capabilities, I'm not saying that we're more capable than the Russians are. It has nothing to do with that. We can do things that the Russians can't, sure, but the Russians can do things that we can't. That's also true. It's not disrespect to say something like that. But Poland at this point can't match U.S. military doctrine. Why? Because they're not the United States military. They don't have the logistical resources we do. One of the aspects of U.S. doctrine is to ensure air superiority and then air supremacy and keep it. and maintain it. You can't do that without having the air weapons platforms, the multiple layers of air platforms, in order to be able to sustain that. If your doctrine calls for the necessity of having that and you can't achieve it, aka Ukraine, the result is other aspects that are based with this in mind suffer. And so you have to change how you do things. This is why they lost so much equipment, like the Bradleys. The Ukrainians lost more Bradleys than we did in the entire Iraq War. And they didn't even have as many. Well, how did they do it? Because tactically they weren't able to use them the way we could. Because air supremacy and air dominance was not achievable by them. It's not the only thing that's involved, but it is definitely one of the things that is greatly involved in this. So the Irish Star making these ridiculous situations because they want to say it's all because of XYZ Trump because they got Trump arrangements. And so they put things into the starkest terms to make it look bad for Trump at all costs, rather than, oh, well he kind of has a point about this or that or anything else, because they can't afford to give him any credit on anything. He only deserves blame for everything. And I'm not saying that there aren't things to blame Trump about. But there's a lot you can try and give him credit for, but you have no intention of ever doing it. Because you're not honest. Because you're a leftist. Europe can't be a miserable slave to Trump, says Belgium PM. The Belgian PM, Bart de Wever, said Europe is under a lot of pressure from the Trump administration's tariffs and recent threats to overtake Greenland, while issuing a strong warning to European leaders not to cave into these demands. A politician, the member of the conservative Flemish nationalist NVA party, made the comments during a panel discussion at the World Economic Forum. Europe is at a crossroads where it has to decide either unite or explode in any possible direction. Until now, we tried to appease the president. You've never tried to appease the president. You've tried to sit up there and how do I say this? Appeal to his ego, all right? But you're not trying to appease him. You're trying to play the flim flam game. If we tell Trump this and he likes it, all right, he'll treat us better. He'll treat us and we'll get our way. No, and he said no. Okay, you gave me the latitude that I wanted, the adulation, but you're still going to have to pay up. Oh, you can't do that. You can't make us pay fair or fair share. Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, France, all these countries are used to being under the umbrella of U.S. protection. The U.S. is threatening to withdraw that umbrella. And they can't handle it. And the reason they can't handle it is because they can't be honest, not with themselves and not with their people. If they had to tell their people, okay, we can no longer afford all these grand social programs, we can no longer afford, nationalized health care, we can no longer afford you guys retiring at age 55, because we have to actually spend money on our own defense, the people will go berserk. The people will go berserk. And these tariffs, you guys think these tariffs are a threat? Well, we'll tariff our U.S. back. Go ahead. There's only one country that seriously can have a trade war of any note with the United States, and that's China. I want you to think on that, folks. You're going to tariff our goods. Well, what are our goods? Well, agricultural goods. You mean the same agricultural goods that you've been banning repeatedly? So that you can get them from Latin America? Because their safety record for food and so forth is so much better than the U.S. You guys use excuse after excuse after excuse to ban American products time and time and time and time again. And now you're going to complain about this? Now you're going to sit there and go, oh, well, we got to respond. We got to respond. With what? There's a lack of understanding about Americans around the world because the Europeans think we think like they do, and we don't. You guys bitch about us being the world policeman, and then you bitch about how we have a responsibility of being the leader of the free world, none of which we asked for. You guys are bitching about the U.S. doing things that you guys do constantly as nation states. Constantly. You sit up there and think that the United States should subordinate its foreign policy to you and protect you because it's good for the world. Whether it's good for the United States is immaterial. It's just a sacrifice, supposedly, America has to make for the world. But America's getting tired of making a sacrifice for the world while the world sits up there and lives high on the hog. This is one of the problems that's going on in our country right now is the same attitude is being portrayed right now in Minneapolis, all right, with all this freaking fraud. People are saying enough is enough. And people are finally saying, well, wait a minute here. Why isn't something being done about this fraud? Well, boy, howdy. Now, the Belgian president did go on and make some honest assessments. We're in a very bad position at the moment. We are dependent on the United States. So we chose to be lenient. Oh, you chose to be lenient because you're dependent on us. Huh. So you admit that you're dependent on us, all right? But then you're saying, well, you know, there's lots of red lines. You're doing things that we don't like. And then stand up and show us how it's done. Canadians are finding out the hard way right now. The Canadian economy is in a free fall at the moment. Because they got on their little leftist hind horses thinking, oh, no. We know what's right. We're the moral ones. You have no morality. At best, you're amoral. The vast majority of you are nothing but degenerates. And right now, the hordes that the U.S. has been keeping at bay, the United States is at a point where it's like, well, let them come in. Let them run over your countries. We're not worried about it. This guy's got to go too. It's morally acceptable for U.S. troops to disobey orders, Bishop says. The Trump administration intervenes in Venezuela, readies troops for possible deployment in Minneapolis, and threatens to seize Greenland. The Catholic bishop for the U.S. Armed Forces said it would be morally acceptable for troops to disobey what violated their conscience. Archbishop Timothy P. Broglio is one of a chorus of Catholic leaders questioning the administration's use of force. His comments also, which is not what he did, okay, but regardless, his comments are also underscoring a mounting concern being voiced by the first American pontiff, all right, Pope Leo the 14th, as well as his top cardinals in the U.S. over the Trump administration's foreign policy. Greenland is the territory of Denmark. It does not seem really reasonable that the United States would attack or occupy a friendly nation. It's not a friendly nation. How are they friendly? You see, an archbishop that's like that in the armed forces, well, if you can't understand that these are not friendly nations, then maybe you should not be the archbishop of the armed forces and remove him. Let somebody else come in there. If he's nothing but in the chaplain service, then he needs to sit up there and be honest with these things. To sit up there and say that they're a friendly nation, they're not an actively hostile nation yet, but they're not friendly. Trying to get some liquid water in me. How are they friendly? Can somebody tell me what Greenland or Denmark has ever sacrificed, all right, in any way, shape, or form, all right, for the United States? Strictly to be friendly. Now, a lot of people would go try and throw the same thing back in my face. Well, what has the U.S. ever done with Denmark that's been, friendly? We've protected them. We've used U.S. military assets to be on the border with the old Soviet Union and then now Russia to prevent anything from happening to them, so that they haven't had to fill out any of their own issues. The great Danish army of the past in the 1600s that they can all remember from the past doesn't exist today. The great Swedish, King Gustav doesn't exist today. But the Swedes have stabbed us in the back repeatedly. The French, the EU as a whole, has constantly stabbed the United States in the back. Tell me something that is pro-American in any kind of agreement that sacrifices anything to the EU, or that the EU had to make some kind of sacrifice for, or that the Danes have had to make some kind of sacrifice for, that benefits strictly America, that doesn't benefit themselves. Because I can tell you right now, what's going on in the Ukraine does not benefit the United States in one iota. Not one iota. Our supposed NATO allies would rather sit up there and take air defense systems from our adversaries, aka Russia, than they would from the United States. And then they still expect the United States to, quote unquote, ride to the rescue to support them. The need for U.S. involvement in NATO ended with the Soviet Union. And it's about time people understood that. Now, there's a lot of people who say, well, the U.S. has done a lot of things we don't like. Okay. What have we done that is strictly for the United States that you supported, all right, that didn't support yourselves? Well, look at the Iran-Iraq war. Look at the war. I mean, we in Afghanistan and stuff. Bullshit. You guys were just as much getting shot by these idiots as we were. The terrorists were blowing up French and other things just as much as they were Americans. Don't tell me you were in there, France, because we're here to support our ally. No, you weren't. And then we found just how inept you really are. You look at Iran right now. Iran having all these problems. And the United States is saying the French and all these other countries are going to have to step up in Gaza. Here's why. The problems going on in that region are a direct result of the French interference in these countries. Oh, it's the U.S. that's at fault. It's always the U.S. is at fault. France never did anything except, I don't know, run the Iranian Revolution from Paris, allow the Ayatollah Khomeini to run that whole sequence from Paris. At the same time, we're trying to shore up the Shah, all right, to keep it as a moderate Islamic country. Our good old supposed allies in the French were supporting a revolution to put it in a hardline Islamic dictatorship. Or, excuse me, theocracy. And then blames the U.S. for it. And the rest of the European countries, you're just as much to blame. You're about to see the United States withdraw from the world, just like you constantly bitch about, and tell you to think happy thoughts about yourself. We set back the Iranian nuclear program by about a decade. And what did we get from the world? Plaudits? We got nothing but condemnation from these people. Oh, silence. As part of it was silence. We should appreciate the fact that they were silent. The French have been nothing but assholes to us. And we've allowed it for the longest time. Well, France can now take over the rest of Europe, and you can all think happy thoughts about yourself. Keir Starmer risks provoking Donald Trump again as he's accused of kowtowing to Beijing by giving China's mega embassy the green light, despite security fears. That's because Keir Starmer is an idiot. Keir Starmer risked provoking Donald Trump again today as he gave the green light for China's new mega embassy in London despite security fears. The government has signed off on plans for the site in the face of furious opposition by many MPs and warnings it will amplify spying, which of course it will. Critics accuse the Prime Minister, who could now confirm his visit to China soon, of lacking backbone to stand up to Beijing and kowtowing to an Asian superpower. Isn't it funny how they kowtow to an Asian superpower? Well, we're going to stand up to that evil orange dictator Hitler, even though he's more like us and and they're less of a threat to us than but he's the Cheeto Führer. Documents released alongside the decision show MI5 warned that it is not realistic to expect to be to be able wholly to eliminate each and every potential risk. The decision was announced shortly after Mr. Trump had condemned Sir Keir for giving away the Chagos Islands to the Marathis, right, in an act of great stupidity. Yeah. And a few hours later, Chancellor Rachel Reeves used an appearance at the Worldwide Economic Forum in Davos to say it was the UK in the UK's national interest to do more business with China. Because doing business with the United States does what? It's devastating. Because you're worried about the U.S. using that as a fulcrum for power, a lever of power. Excuse me. As if China doesn't do that all the time. You would rather give that power to the Chinese than to the United States. Why? Because it's more important to stick it to the United States. It's more important for the United States to say, you know what, we've had enough of you people. Or is it that you don't believe that the U.S. will say, you know what, we've had enough of you fools. We're just going to pick up our ball and go home. Excuse me. I had a little bit of that water go down the wrong, the wrong pipe. Sightseeing helicopter goes missing in southwest Japan. Crash is suspected. Kumamoto, Japan. A sightseeing helicopter went missing Tuesday near a volcanic crater on Mount Azo in the Kumamoto Prefecture in southwestern Japan, with wreckage found in the area, local firefighters and other sources said. Two passengers, a man and a woman from Taiwan, and a 64-year-old Japanese pilot were aboard the helicopter, which departed at 10:52 a.m. from a zoo in Aso. Contact was lost about 10 minutes later, according to helicopter operator Takumi Enterprise in Okayama, Western Japan. The missing chopper, a U.S.-made Robson R-44, was on a 10-minute tour. The whereabouts of the three remain unknown. The local government has reached out to a Taiwanese organization, Fukuoka, given that there was information that the two passengers were travelers. The helicopter was on its third sightseeing flight of the day when it went missing. No abnormalities had been reported during the first two flights, the operator said. Yeah. Flying, whether we like to admit this or not, is not always safe. And it never will be 100% safe, unfortunately. Excuse me, let me try and get rid of this little sticking throat here. Folks, sorry for that. And I figure you want to hear me cough and spew up a little bit of phlegm. Let's go on to the next story. A breast milk motive for a theft. Before stealing a used Stanley Cup from a female coworker, an accused thief remarked that the insulated tumbler would be great to hold my breast milk. Investigators said. Cops yesterday arrested Andrea Moss, 29, on a misdemeanor charge in connection with the 29th December theft at a recreation complex in Largo, Florida. What a surprise. According to the arrest report, Moss was observed on video surveillance looking at the cup numerous times before taking possession of the victim's 40-ounce light blue Stanley Cup and concealing it in her lunchbox before exiting the Highland Recreation Center. Moss, cop said, saw a 22-year-old victim frequently drinking that day from the $60 Stanley Cup during multiple interactions with the victim. Lady, you could have always bought your own. Okay? Gee, you could have got your own. I just, there's some weird people out there. There's some weird people out there. National Bank of Poland to increase gold reserves to 700 tons. The National Bank of Poland has decided to increase its gold reserves to 700 tons, according to a statement by the central bank on Tuesday. This will place Poland among the top 10 countries with the largest gold holdings in the world, said Adam Glabinski, excuse me, Glapinski. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I'm not trying to butcher it. Head of the central bank. He added that last year, the National Bank of Poland was the largest gold buyer among central banks, increasing its bullion reserves by more than 100 tons. At the end of 2025, the Bank of Poland held 5,500 or 550 tons of gold, ranking 12th among the largest gold holders in the world. So there's more pressure on gold is what's happening as a result, and precious metals prices continue to skyrocket. NYPD sex crime sergeant arrested for groping a domestic violence victim, prosecutors say. A NYPD sex crime sergeant was arrested for allegedly groping a domestic violence victim in Brooklyn after boasting, "I am a police supervisor," prosecutors and law enforcement sources said. Sergeant Talia Ahmed, 28, allegedly squeezed the buttocks of a woman who called 911 seeking to help on December 30th, according to a criminal complaint. Ahmed told the woman, "I am the police supervisor," who was there to further investigate allegations of her 911 call, the court document said. He then grabbed her from behind without her consent, prosecutors charged. Ahmad's alleged victims left the woman, who sources said initially called the cops over a domestic violence incident, alarmed and annoyed, according to prosecutors. Do I need to make any more comments? Do I really have to make any comments here? He is now suspended without pay from the NYPD, according to the department spokesperson. Online records show that Ahmad joined the department in July of 2019 and was reassigned to the Manhattan Court section earlier this month. All right, final two stories. Escaped parakeet flies into kindergarten classroom and lands on a girl. An escaped pet parakeet was reunited with her owner after making a stop in an Ontario kindergarten classroom, landing on a little girl's head. The St. Noel Chanable Catholic School in Wasaga Beach said in a social media that one female parakeet found her way into the kindergarten classroom and landed on one of the girls' head twice before being contained by the teacher. Caught with a net, probably. The parakeet was then taken to the school's office, where she was given a temporary home while officials attempted to find her owners. The bird, dubbed Stormy by the school, was eventually identified as an escaped pet named Snow. "We've had so much fun spending time with Snow during her stay at our school," officials wrote. "From classroom visits to official hangouts, we loved every minute with her. While we are definitely sad to see her go, our hearts are full knowing she's back with her family where she belongs." Now the parakeets are getting into the act, being wild. And the final story of the day, Bessie! Bessie on the loose! Bessie's running with spears! Austrian researchers document first case of a cow using a tool. Researchers in Austria have detailed an unusual case of the first cow to ever be documented using tools, specifically sticks and brushes she uses to scratch herself. The team from the University of Veterinary Medicine in Vienna said Veronica, a pet brown or Swiss brown cow belonging to the Carinthia resident, Carinthia resident Whitgar Wigele, I don't know how to say it. All right, who has been holding sticks in her mouth to scratch her body for years. Wigele said Veronica first picking up pieces of wood about a decade ago and moving on to using a long brush, even showing a preference for using a brush end to scratch her skin where her skin is thickest and a handle to scratch her more sensitive areas. The researchers published their findings in the Journal of Current Biology. Cows with sticks! Now they're going to be running around with spears. It's a cow on the loose. They've been trained by the squirrels. Just, just to let you know. All right, everybody. That's all I've got for the day. I'm sorry for all the technical difficulties today. I hope you still enjoy the show, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye bye.